I started cursing after reading that.
Oh,
because he curses all the time.
He sure does.
And it sort of gets in your head a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought that...
So funny. I'm sorry. Just picturing 12-year-old Rainie.
Yeah, being like these goddamn phonies.
Yeah. Welcome to Shoulda Books, the podcast about all the books you should have read by now. My name is Jonathan, and today I am joined by the one and only Rainie Toll.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. And Rainie is a podcaster and a creator and a creative around town.
Exactly,
right now.
Exactly. Creative, that's a good way to say it. Sometimes
Yeah.
because I actually used to be like, when people ask, what do you do? I'm like, podcast producer. And now when people ask, I'm like, I don't know. But I think creative around town is maybe my next.
Is that's what's going on the business card?
Yeah.
So Rainie and I on the Patreon Cold Open, we're kind of chatting about what life has been like since the layoff.
Mm-hmm.
Real heads know.
Yeah.
And but today we're here to talk about books.
Yes.
And tell me what's kind of your relationship to reading like these days?
Yeah. Okay. So I am an incredibly slow reader. I'm in the 3rd percentile reading speed in the nation. Parents had me tested because they were like, is she okay? Yeah. I'm such a slow reader that I sort of have a complicated relationship with it. I had like extra time on tests and stuff. But I have the controversial take that I like reading. I'm not an advocate of finishing.
Interesting. Okay.
I do it for the fun of the game. If it doesn't pull me, that's no shade to the book.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's okay.
Okay.
We got to move on. I'm done.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Exactly. I've gotten a sense of this book.
Yeah.
I like what the author is doing here, but I don't need to finish it. There's I recently started a book and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I'm never going to finish it.
What book was it?
Stranger. Have you heard of this?
I think so.
Okay,
but...
it's a crazy premise. It's essentially this New York Times, like she was in, anyway, okay, no, let me start over. So there's this woman who was married for 20 years, had 3 kids, and then the pandemic hit. She comes from like a ton of money, like Vanderbilt's on one side and like other money on the other side. Yeah. So she and her husband, who works in like finance, had an apartment in New York City, and they lived most of the year, and then they summered in Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
And so when the pandemic hit, it was like really, really bad in New York.
Sure.
So they went to Martha's Vineyards, and then one day she got a call, and this guy was like, "Hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, but like, your husband is having an affair with my wife." And so she briefly confronts the husband about it, but like the kids are like there and they need like their apple turnover or whatever. So then they go to sleep. She's like restless. He's like sound asleep in their son's room. And then in the morning, he comes in, bags packed, and was like, "I actually don't want this life. I'm leaving. You can have custody. You can have the houses. I'm out."
Whoa.
Yeah. And so the book is about like, how did that happen? Like she's trying to figure out like what the fuck happened because she had no idea. And
you didn't finish it?
No.
That sounds, that's a gripping story.
It was really beautifully written. I mean, I don't know if it was beautiful. It's interesting. I was kind of trying to figure out how reliable the narrator is, because it's
interesting. Yeah.
That happens and it's like, wait, did you miss something huge?
Right,
but
right.
I don't think so. I think he might be like just crazy.
Yeah.
Like I don't, but also I don't know. I don't know these people.
Oh my God.
But she's a really good writer.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd recommend it.
Okay. Have you always kind of had that philosophy about books?
I think so. I mean, so actually, I think more so my dad is like, how like you get older and you're like, oh, I guess I'm just becoming my parents a little bit.
Don't I know it?
Yeah. And it's like, okay. So my dad he always, for movies, he's like, let's just get a sense of this. Let's just get a sense. Like,
okay.
We just watch the first 20 minutes and then you'll just know.
Yeah.
Sort of what the vibe is. And I think I got it from him. I think also it comes from just like my attention span even before the advent of the smartphone was just not all the way there.
Yeah.
So I think I was just like, I mean, when I was little though, I read a bunch. Like I read, all of your sort of books for 4th grade boys. Still maybe my favorite genre.
Like what are some of those? What are some of the
obviously
highlights?
Percy Jackson.
Literally
the best book. movies of all time.
Yeah.
I loved Gregor the Overlander, which is a Suzanne Collins
right,
book.
Yeah. Pre-Hunger Games.
Pre-Hunger Games. What else did I liked just liked a lot of like adventure. And so I read a lot. I remember like in the summer having chocolate milk and reading like Harry Potter, and I was like, this is it.
Oh man.
Just
the chocolate milk is the Harry Potter I have no connection to.
Yeah.
But the chocolate milk is so nostalgic.
Did you not
for
read
me.
Harry Potter?
I've never read them.
I mean, that's good, probably. I mean, fuck J.K. Rowling, honestly, but it's unfortunately it just kind of is a good series.
That's what I've heard. But I was playing the long game.
You really were playing the long game.
Who's winning now?
Who's winning now?
No, I didn't read them growing up, and then as an adult, I was like, maybe I'll get around to them, and then we all realized how awful she is, and then I was like, well, now I really don't have to.
Now you for sure.
Really
you're off the hook.
I am off.
Everybody
the hook.
sort of wishes they hadn't.
Yeah. So I've seen almost all the movies. I've seen all but the last one. Yeah. So I've kind of done your philosophy of like, I don't actually have to finish this. Drives Michaela crazy. She's like,
just watch
we've got one left. Come on. And I'm just like,
Well, it's hard too because that's the second part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have to give J.K. Rowling this much airtime because she sucks ass. But I'm trying to think my relationship with reading in general. I'm much more of a movie person.
Yeah.
But I do like an audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to I should get more into audiobooks because I think long form is just better. And I think like I think that what you can take away from a book is different than, a YouTube video.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
they serve different purposes.
Exactly. They're different, like, irons in the golf bag,
exactly.
Of just like
exactly.
Books are able to, communicate over a long span of time.
Right.
And you sit with a book in a way that you don't with other media. But speaking of movies, you were recently on Perfect Person. Shout out.
Shout out.
We love Perfect Person. And you mentioned that you've been raw dogging movies. Yes. And I was like, I want to hear more about this. Okay. What is raw dogging a movie?
Raw dogging a movie is you go onto AMC.com, scroll, click random movie. Don't look into it at all.
Yeah.
No marketing products at all, because I find that even the poster can give stuff away. So I watched, have you seen Project Hail Mary?
I have not, no.
Okay, I'm not even going to spoil it.
Okay.
Because there is a character that I was not expecting.
I saw the trailer and the character was in the trailer, and I was, honestly, it put me off. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch a movie where it has that.
Yeah, exactly. So the other one that I saw was Hoppers. Have you heard of this?
Oh, it's a Pixar movie, right?
Yeah. Not for kids.
Really?
In my opinion.
Okay.
There were kids there, but I felt bad for them.
Okay.
It was too intense. It was way too intense for me.
What is it about?
It's about this like college student who essentially becomes a beaver to save the beavers. And it is very profound.
Okay.
It is it's literally devastating. I mean, there's this moment I was crying for like the last 20 minutes of the movie. Like I was like, and it wasn't even sad. It was just like really beautiful of like, I mean, she makes a big mess in the first hour and 40, like in a way that I was just like, I can't, like you are just making the wrong call at every single turn.
Yeah.
But I'll spoil a little bit. So skip forward. But there's this part where, so she runs into this, the King Beaver. And his whole mentality is like, I just trust people. Like, I just trust other beings. Like, I just think like we're in this together. And then there's like the humans are trying to destroy his home.
Yeah.
And there's a point where the human's home is up in flames and he like tears down the dam that he built to save the humans. It was so, I was
that's
like,
beautiful.
And it was just, I just like loved, I mean, but it was kind of too scary as well.
Okay.
But it was good.
Okay.
I really liked it. I'm glad that, see, this is the thing. I'm glad that I saw it.
Yeah.
The next one that I'm going to see is Yumi and Tuscany.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to watch that one. And maybe The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, right. Okay.
But maybe not.
Have you seen the first one?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
That's good. Have you seen it?
I have. But
did you like it?
Relatively recently. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. I saw it within the last year or two.
Meryl Streep.
Incredible.
She's,
I mean, the whole cast. You got the Tooch.
Yeah.
You got Emily, what
Yeah,
Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
Blanked. I went blunt on that. Yeah.
You're a big moviegoer, right?
Yeah. I haven't this year, 2026. I have not gone to the movies as much. So
well, I guess you were in Rome.
I was away. Yeah,
Did they have
I did.
those in Rome?
They I didn't want to see like any dubbed movies, and I'm sure I could have found English screenings, but it was also just like there's so many like other things I could see. I could go to the Coliseum or I could go to the movies. Like
I'm gonna go to Coliseum.
So but I need to get back into seeing movies. But this podcast is not about movies.
Yeah.
It's about books. And so you've brought 3 books that you think everyone should read.
Yeah.
And before we get to those, I have a book for you.
Really?
Yes. Oh. So you're going to open this at the end of this episode.
Oh my gosh.
But we're gonna see if it's something that you think you'll be interested in.
Okay.
If you haven't read it already.
Okay.
So but
what if it's one of the ones? It could be based on the size.
I mean, the thing is it's gonna happen at some point.
And I like that you got me a small book. I like that you were like, yeah, Rainie's probably not gonna finish it unless
it's not Moby Dick. But it is a book that I really enjoy. So we'll see. I do think, I don't know what your books are going to be today. Sometimes it's very hit or miss. Sometimes people tell me beforehand. Sometimes today I'm going in blind.
Yeah.
What is the first book?
Okay. So the first book, Stay With Me. Okay.
Okay. That's what it's called?
No. Okay. It's a cookbook.
No way. Oh, Fantastic Fungi.
Fantastic Fungi. So there's a few things that I want to talk about with this.
Okay.
So the first thing is I went to the Natural History Museum a year and a half ago, and it changed my life.
Wow. Here in LA?
Yes. Have you been?
I know.
You gotta go.
Okay. I gotta.
Okay. Yeah. I literally was like gobsmacked. I was looking at the human skulls from like hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Whoa.
And it's just like, oh wait, we existed. Like, I don't even know. I think it was just like weird to see. But then I went to the dinosaur section.
Ooh,
and I was like, I'm actually a dinosaur kid. Like, these things are awesome. They're huge.
They are. Yeah.
They're huge. So I text my cousin who's certified dinosaur kid. He famously, when he was little, we had like this big family dinner, and he was like, I now am going to perform. And he did an interpretive dance of each of the like Paleolithic like eras. So like before the super volcano, this is what his dance is.
Oh my God.
It was so funny. And everybody, like all the adults at the table were like,
what do we do with this?
What do we do? Like, nobody will have to.
Your cousin sounds like they're going to be an incredible adult.
Yes.
Probably going to have a hard time in high school and like maybe college, but
certified,
on the other side of that,
that's what everybody keeps telling him.
It's gonna be great.
Do you guys promise?
Yeah.
Hang in
there, buddy. Yeah, it's gonna get better.
So I'm really close with him. I talk to him every week. So I text him and I'm like, Elliot, I am a dinosaur kid. Like, tell me everything I need to know. And he was like, you should watch Life on Our Planet. And so we sort of did a little book club of like each episode we would watch, and then we would talk later that week.
That's beautiful.
And it was so fun. Right now we're doing it with, this was a year and a half ago, but now we're back into the grindset mindset of the dino
class
docs.
is back in session.
Yeah, class is back in session. We're doing the BBC Walking with Monsters.
Oh, I've never seen it, but it sounds amazing.
I would watch Life on Our Planet first. Because the BBC, it was made in like 2000. The animatronics are abysmal.
Oh, really?
It's like funny. I mean, my favorite part is when the dinosaurs like look into the camera, quote unquote, but it's so clearly like, it's like, this is barely a drawing.
They're doing Jim from The Office.
They're like, what's this camera? And it's like, no. Guys, you got to know what you guys are doing here. So then I watched this dinosaur documentary, and like they mention mushrooms in it. And so mushrooms to me really caught my attention in a big way, in the sense that I'm like very afraid of death. But mushrooms have like a weird relationship with death in the sense that there's like 3 points of contact with death. One, they turn like decaying logs or bodies or whatever into life.
Right.
So they're at the crux of between death and life.
Yep.
Also, they are like a lot of cultures, including ours, are like mushrooms will elongate your life. Like, if you eat mushrooms, they're super good for you. They have all of these like our culture is more like about vitamins and like the macrobes or whatever. But in all sorts of, I have a different book about like lore around mushrooms.
Yeah.
Although they're very powerful. Like some cultures where like there's like what is it? It's not mushroom phobe, but it's like mushroom phio or mushroom phobe, but it's not mushroom.
Okay.
But like, so some cultures are like, this is like, stay away from that.
Okay.
This is very scary because obviously it kills you.
Right.
But some cultures are like, I'm fascinated by this. So that's another place where they're like right on the line of life and death of like, you could eat this and it could make you live longer, or you could eat this and it'll kill you.
Yeah.
And also I've heard that people who trip mushrooms often come away not being afraid of death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I've talked to a few people and they're like, I'm like, why? And they're kind of like, it's just because like you just sort of realize it's all one thing. Like we're all part of one thing.
Yeah.
So I got like very into mushrooms in general. And then I got this cookbook, which is like this adorable. So it's Fantastic Fungi Community Cookbook. So it's like edited with essays by Eugenia Bone. So it's like, but they come from just like different people. They just wrote in.
That's so cool.
Yeah. People who
crowdsourced.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, and I think most of them watched the documentary about mushrooms. Oh, the other thing about mushrooms that I love is there's something called it's not microbial network. It's some sort of, I'll text you the name. You put it,
and we'll put it on the screen right here.
Yeah. But it's the mushrooms are like the fruit and then the fungi is all underneath, like all super interconnected. And there's like, I think it's described as like, it's almost like your brain, like connecting.
Like the neurons. Yeah.
And it's so, I'm like, I just think that that's crazy that it's like, I think that and trees communicate with it. So like trees will, if one tree gets attacked by a beetle, it'll send out signals to the other trees.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then the trees will like create, like antibodies. And so it kind of, it's like this idea of like, it changes evolution kind of like fundamentally of like, is it competitive or is it collaborative?
Interesting.
Which I think is really interesting. And sort of just that interconnectedness of something I think about all the time is my uncle, who's the dad of the Dino Kid, is like, he's like, none of us win unless we all win, kind of. And I think like that is coming back to the microbial network, this idea of like, maybe evolution actually wasn't competitive this whole time, Yeah,
I really like that like framing of it, because it's one of those things that just the worst people in the world will use evolution to justify whatever horrific thing they're doing. Yeah. And it's like, what if they have fundamentally misunderstood it?
Right? I will say on the other hand, the dinosaur docs, you start to think it's like, oh, humans are monsters. The dinosaurs were monsters too. Like, so it's both. This is the thing. It's like both. It's interconnected in the good way and the bad way. Yeah. And all this like scary stuff exists alongside the good stuff. Yeah. But the other thing that I want to say,
back to the book.
Anyways, so what I love about this is so it's all these people who I think just watched this documentary, Fantastic Fungi, about like how powerful like mushrooms are, and they're like very moved by it, and then they submitted. There's like some like I don't know community board or whatever, and so there's like this just like such charming little stories about like my father taught me about mushrooms when I was a boy, like that's that random page, but like it comes from all different walks. And the other thing is cookbooks in general. I went to Vermont every summer, and it was like it was with my friend's family, and her grandfather had like he was very inspirational to me, and like I like he was very meaningful to me, and he would read cookbooks every night before bed.
Oh wow!
And so that's sort of like what I've taken from him is like you can do that too. You don't have to cook it because they're beautiful, like and the pictures are so pretty, and it's like. You're reading it and it's like almost a puzzle. Like, I don't know, how big into cooking are you?
I like cooking. Yeah. I like cooking a lot. And I specifically love cooking recipes from a physical cookbook.
Yes.
Like it's so much more, I think it's so much less stressful. Yeah. Because like I can open the page and it stays there. Yeah. Whereas if I'm cooking a recipe off my phone, I'm having to like, now I gotta wipe off my hands, and then unlock the phone and blah blah blah.
So
or if I leave it on, and then I gotta make sure, exactly. But I love cooking. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, I love cooking too, and I think the way that I read a recipe generally is like I'll read through it and then I like kind of get it, get it enough so I can like pretty much do it, and then if I like think about like, wait, how much was that supposed to be? Then I'll go back. But so it's sort of like functional where you're reading it and you're sort of thinking to yourself, wait, so how would that go in practice? You know, and I think like that's cool. And let's see. Oh, the other thing is, have you heard that thing that's like the what differentiates humans from other animals is cooking?
Yeah.
I don't know if I totally believe that, because I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a very human thing to, I was like, it's similar to, I was at Baller Hardware, actually passed it on the way here.
Oh yeah.
And like it feels the same cooking, like this idea of like humans just being like, oh, I've got a solution. Let me tell you about how, like, I know how to build this. Like, I want to tell you how to build it. And I think that's the same with cookbooks. And I think also like just in general, my again, my cousin and my uncle, this time I texted my aunt because they lived in Turkey for a few years. And so they have all these Turkish recipes. And so I got super into making Turkish eggs and I was like, so good. Oh my God. Anyways, I asked her for more Turkish recipes and my cousin filmed her like making this recipe. And I was like, I felt like so loved. Aww. Like I was like, that's so sweet. You didn't have to do that. You could have just texted me the ingredients.
Right. But what a special thing that now you have.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. So I feel like that's why I love a cookbook.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's like so hope core of like humans being like, I figured this out. Like you can do it too.
Yeah.
So that's my first one.
Okay. Yeah. What's real quick before you go?
Yeah.
What's one recipe from there that you really like?
Ooh. So unfortunately, I don't actually like the recipes that much. I loved the book and I loved reading it.
We're gonna take a break.
No, I gotta try. So I will say, in fairness, I made one that was fried. It was like fried chicken, but make it mushrooms, and I think it was too hard for me.
Oh, okay.
Like I don't know if I had the right equipment.
Yeah, it's tough when you don't have the right
I think
tools.
that one was just a flop.
Okay.
And then the other one, I found it so charming because it was this guy who was like, I didn't really care about mushrooms, but then I watched this documentary and I figured I could just probably make this. And so it was like this very simple recipe that it was like onion, chicken, and then mushroom. And he just added the mushroom. And I just thought it was so sweet that I made it. But I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty standard.
Yeah.
But I should make more.
Okay.
From this. The cookbook that I make a lot of stuff from is Tofu Tasty.
Ooh.
So shout out to that. But also, honestly, I would recommend this book even if you don't make It's kind of my same mentality of like, I don't know, like you don't have to finish it. You don't have to make the recipes. Like you can just enjoy it.
You can just experience it in a like it's a limited form and that's still valid and
exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll see. I'll try making one and I'll text you if it's good.
Okay.
Because I feel like the sample is bad. One was never going to succeed and the other one was like totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to take a quick break.
Yes.
And then we'll be back with Rainie's second book. Okay, Rainie, what is your second book?
Okay. So my second book is, I'm actually doing two.
Ooh, okay.
Because they, to me, occupy the same space in my head.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's Catcher in the Rye. What do you think?
I have complicated feelings, but overall I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your feelings about it. And The Giver.
Oh, okay. I've never read The Giver.
Oh, it's sweet.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. I should reread it, honestly. And Taylor Swift was in the movie.
Oh.
Swifties.
Oh, wow.
No, but I think the movie was like kind of weird. I don't think they really got it. You know what I mean? But whatever. So one reason that I want to do both of them is because to me, they're both about like people who are really sensitive and feel more and how they navigate the world. Yeah. However, I looked up right before this. I was like, because I was just going to do Catcher in the Rye.
Okay.
And then I was like, let me just make sure I remember the plot. And I was like, I did not. I picked up what I wanted from that book. You know what I mean?
Right.
There were some plot lines where I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, he's maybe the bad guy here. Like, I don't know. But when I read it it was going into 9th grade.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I did not pick up on that stuff. Like, I think what I just saw this guy who is like, I mean, first it starts with him like leaving. He was, do you remember this part where he was like with the fencing team? And it was just because he needed like some credit, or he was like, whatever, I guess I'll join the fencing team as their like helper, like water boy kind of, which is
Right.
just a funny idea, like to be a water boy for fencing.
fencer.
And then he forgot all their equipment on the subway.
Oh my God.
And then he was just like, I'm sorry. Like everybody's being so annoying about it though. And I'm just sort of like, that just spoke to me. Off the bat, I was like, Nicor, I'm leaving shit on the subway. And people are like, Rainie, why did you leave it? And I'm like, that's a really good point, but sorry.
Well,
Like,
why are you being mean?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it just I sort of related to that on that front. But I think that like, so what I remember about it is it's about like this kid whose brother died and he's like feeling these emotions and everybody around him either isn't feeling it or isn't talking about it.
Yeah.
And like, how do you navigate a world where you feel more? And I think that the Giver is about that too. So the Giver is about, I didn't do the summary for Catcher in the Rye is he gets kicked out of his boarding school again, and he sort of just wreaks havoc in New York City for a few days until his parents figure out that he was kicked out. Yeah, and then he's in it starts and ends with him in a like mental facility. And he is like, he really, really loves his little sister is the other part. And it's a coming of age. It's a loss of innocence story as well. Like how, like going from childhood to adulthood and what does that look like? And what does that feel like? Right. The Giver is about, it's this community where they figured out a way that when you reach a certain age, you take a pill and you don't feel anything. So you don't feel happy and you don't feel sad. And it's interesting, and I'll come back to this later. It's like when you have your first like kind of sex dream. Like I think he dreams about like holding his friend's hand or something. Okay. Yeah. And every day they do a dream check-in. And like so with kids, and as soon as they have that dream, they give them the pill.
Then it's time. Yeah. Dream check.
Dream check-in. Oh, interesting. Okay. Like and we're gonna get you medicated for that. But but in this community, they're all assigned different roles. So there's like mothers or doctors or teachers or whatever. Like, and there's one role called the Giver, and that role is to feel everything. And so there's an old Giver who he's chosen as the Giver. Okay. And there's this old Giver who teaches him, like essentially they're like these memories, and I read this in like 5th grade, so hopefully I'm getting this right. But like there are these memories that or experiences, essentially some like he gives him these experiences like flashback-ish, where the first one is like something really like laughing really hard and like joy and stuff. But then eventually it's like you're sledding and you break your leg. And like, how does that feel? And so he's like, similarly, I think, having this experience of feeling things that nobody around you feel. And so I feel like the reason that I loved both of these books is I'm like very sensitive, like about everything. Like I feel so intensely, like part of the reason I wear running clothes is I'm like, I don't like the feeling of clothes. Right. But it's also like emotionally, like I just like ever since I was a kid, I've just been like feeling so big. And like in high school, people were like, I just don't really get, like, I don't think you need to be worried about this. Or like, I just don't like, you're really upset. I don't really get it. And so I think like having those books be like, talk about the experience of like feeling more and like how do you operate in a world where you feel more. It's really hard. And the books talk about how like they don't have happy endings, either of them. Yeah. So but I just liked I liked the conversation, and I feel like I felt like a little bit less alone with it. And I think also just a big thing that I come back to over and over again is like, there's no, and just like in my life now, like you can't just feel the good stuff. Like you have to feel the bad stuff too. And the bad stuff is really genuinely really painful. And like, and I think for a while in my 20s, I was just trying to not feel stuff because it was just like hard. Like, I mean, especially like there's, being sensitive as a kid, and then you go through like grief or death or like stuff that like the problems get bigger. And then, it just like can be scary. But what I have this like really good therapist who is like, his whole thing is like feel it for 20 minutes. Right. And then you'll learn that it stops after like, it's not like, this scary thing happened, but it was scary and you're still here. You know, you survived it. And I think like so that's sort of been a theme of my life of just trying to like manage those those like bigger feelings. What did you think about Catcher in the Rye?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that's brilliant, like the combination of those two. Like I said, I haven't read The Giver. I need to, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying about Catcher in the Rye. Of like it's someone who is feeling emotions that are too big for his like toolkit.
Yes, exactly.
You know? And like that is what growing up is. Yeah. And like that's what it means to come of age. And that's why the teen years are so volatile, you know? Yeah. Is like you're feeling all of these emotions and you have this like flood of feelings washing over you, but the only tools you have to deal with them are like safety scissors. You know, it's like you don't have the ability to like properly deal with them. And so I read Catcher in the Rye like I was in college. I think I was maybe 19 or 20. And I felt like, I'm past the point that he was at, you know? And so like, I remember thinking like, oh, I wonder how I would have felt about this if I had read this at Holden Caulfield, the protagonist, like read it at his age. Cause he's like 12 or 13, something like that. Yeah. And, but I did really enjoy it. And I very much resonated with his frustrations and anger, you know, with society and stuff. Yeah. And, you know, this book is I think kind of controversial in some ways because I think that it's kind of in some ways the like foundational text of incels. You know, like the people who like really love this book love it in a way that is not the healthiest for society.
I think there's a number of serial killers who've read this.
There are. I believe I always get John Hinckley confused with the guy Hinckley shot Reagan but didn't kill him, and the guy who shot Lenin. One of those guys was upset. Maybe both of them were obsessed with this book, but
I kind of feel like they didn't get it.
Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Or it's just like, yeah, if you read this book and your takeaway is that like I need to go murder all the phonies, then you've really kind of missed the point.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Holden is not an aspirational figure.
Right. He's also 14.
He's also a child. He's a child.
Who's like gone through trauma. Like, yeah. And there's definitely, I think, some weird stuff about like him getting really mad at his friend for not telling him if he had sex with his like this other girl, and like he wrote like it's all like there's some stuff where I was like reading at least the summary and I was like, let's add The Giver to this. You know, I was like, okay, actually, I don't know if I want to endorse this. But I thought it was it's like engaging. I started cursing after reading that. Because he curses all the time.
He sure does.
And it sort of gets in your head a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought that
so funny. Sorry. Just picturing 12-year-old Rainie.
Yeah, being like these goddamn phonies. Yeah. But I think in some ways, like, I don't know, I remember being that age and being like, yeah, everybody is either lying or I'm in a different universe than everybody.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what do you mean you're not freaked out? A little bit. Like everybody's being like, oh, everything's fine and like it's cool. And I'm like, are you guys feeling this? Like there's like a lot going on that nobody is talking about, and you do sort of start feeling kind of crazy.
Right.
But I also thought that and this is what I remember from the book, is the Catcher in the Rye is this poem about like wanting to, like there are these kids playing, and then there's like rye and like a cliff underneath it, and so the kids would like fly out and like fall off the cliff, and so he wanted to be like, the poem is about being the catcher in the rye, and like catching these kids. And I think like to the point of with The Giver, you can either feel nothing or you can feel the sad and the good. I think that there's something really sweet about like he feels all these things, and as a result of that he wants to help other people. Like I think that there is a relationship between like feeling things and being able to like relate or being able to protect, because you're like aware of more. But it's, you know, so I think there's something like really, really sweet. And I think like at the end of the day, like I choose to feel more, you know, but that doesn't mean that I'm like not wreaking havoc in New York City.
Right.
Like,
right.
or just like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or like, feeling the broken leg on the sled or whatever.
Right. But yeah, but I do think that, that there are some troubling themes in Catcher in the Rye, but I think that like, it's something that we should still read.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth, having those conversations about. And I think that, he was able to just capture the feeling of coming of age, of growing up in a way that like has inspired so many things. Like this is a book that so many books can kind of trace as their lineage to.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like important for that reason as well.
I think there is an interesting thing of like, this is bad, and like maybe we should talk about how it's bad instead of just like pretending it doesn't exist.
Right.
I think that's an interesting.
Yeah. And I think that because I think that just pretending that something doesn't exist and like shying away from it, like that's only gonna make people more curious about it, and then like want to seek it out.
Yeah.
And then, like I think that this is already a book that has a lot of kind of toxic mystique around it. And it's the sort of thing that like, alienated young men like gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we're telling them that they shouldn't read this book, they're probably going to want to read it more.
Right.
And it just feeds into that like alienation.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a very long time, and there's like I really don't remember anything about the plot, but I remember how it made me feel.
Well, the plot is, I mean, it's mostly in his head,
right?
Like nothing, like stuff kind of happens in his external world, but like it's mostly the feeling and how the feeling kind of progresses and waxes and wanes and all that stuff.
How do you feel now? Like, do you feel like you still feel things as strongly now as you did back then?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just cry at Nike commercials, like I just am like,
they just did it.
They just did it. Like literally they're pulling at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
But I also don't know. Maybe everybody feels like this and like they just don't like talk about it as much. But I think like I feel like I like am also, I don't know. I just feel like I'm like hyper alert sometimes too, of like, okay, this person is like, I think this person's going to be upset in 5 minutes, like,
okay.
I think that like this person said something and then like I can sort of feel the energy shift and stuff, but I don't know how much other people feel. Yeah. So I definitely feel, I definitely find that feeling is very intense.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's more than other people. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is hard to know like, how do you even quantify that?
Yeah.
I will say that, I don't feel things as strongly as I used to, like when I was a kid. Like I very much feel, I feel old a lot of the time.
Really?
Yeah. And I feel that, when I was Holden Caulfield's age, like I remember, some stuff happening where I just really kind of shut down and just kind of like in a very conscious way just kind of withdrew and just kind of built like a shell and lived like that for a very long time. And wasn't really until I kind of went to therapy that I started to kind of work through some of that stuff. And so I think I feel more now after having kind of gone like through therapy than I did before I went through therapy. But like in terms of when I was a kid, like I definitely feel like I don't feel as much.
I don't know if I feel as, but I can be like, it's not that big of a deal. Like nobody's dying. It's not that big of a deal. Like I don't have to worry that much, but the world is crazy. That's what I'll say. It really is just really like you live another day and you're like, well, that day was crazy. Didn't think that was gonna happen.
Well, we're gonna take another quick break, and then we will be back with your third and final book.
Yes.
Okay. Your third and final book that you think everyone should read.
Yes.
What do you got?
Well, actually, it's interesting. So because I was thinking about this, I don't know if everybody should read this.
Oh, okay.
So it is, but I think there's a subsect of people who definitely should.
Okay.
or I'd recommend it. It's Turtles All the Way Down by John Green.
John Green, yeah, okay.
So the premise is this high school girl who has OCD, and she and her best friend, she has a best friend, and then there is essentially somebody in their town goes missing, and there's $100,000 reward for any information about it. And it's the guy who goes missing is the dad of someone that Eva, the main character, went to what they call sad camp with. Okay. So she had this like sweet relationship with him when they were younger, after he lost his mom and she lost her dad. And so her best friend, who like really wants the reward, is like, you know, that guy, like, let's go like sleuth it out, essentially. And I think it was like, oh, well, I actually do know that they have a camera in their estate. And so she's like, maybe we could go and check the camera. Okay. And then they get, of course, like abducted by this security guard. Or not abducted. Okay. The security guard is doing explicitly his job, which is just like, okay, or these kids in the yard, like, you have to come. And she was like, well, I know Davis. And so anyways, they start having, Ava and Davis have this like relationship, but mainly what the book is, and while she and her friend are trying to solve this mystery, and Davis, of course, is also he's invested in where his dad is. Yeah. But the book is really about like, is about OCD. And so I watched so I have OCD. Okay. So I watched the movie a few years ago, and the opening scene is like, it's essentially they perfectly capture what it feels like, where she's like trying to, like, her best friend is talking to her. There's this other, person in the friend group who's also trying to talk to her. And like, but the music is like screeching, like she can't think. And all she's thinking about is like, she has this callus that she thinks has C. diff, this like parasitic disease. Okay. And she's like, that's her obsession. Like, she's like, I have C. diff, I have C. diff, I have C. diff. Right, okay. And so she like, it's just like, and so finally, and like the friend's trying to talk to her, and she's like, I can't, like, she's like all she's thinking about is the C. diff. And then she goes into the bathroom and like does the compulsion, which is like to open up the blister and drain the pus. And then the thoughts go away. And so that's how OCD feels, where it's like, I can't, like, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. And then I refill the water in the kettle, and actually now it's all fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the reason I say you maybe shouldn't read this book, I don't know if it might be triggering for some people with OCD. I don't know. I see. Okay. Yeah. It might not. Like, you should talk to, like, I'm sure a doctor knows. It might be all around helpful. I'm not sure. Right. But so a number of things with this book is, one, I think the way I heard about it is, so when my OCD symptoms started like senior year of college, and then when I came home after I graduated, it got worse. And my mom, I think originally my mom was kind of like insulted. Like, she was like, this is like my house, it's clean. Like, why are you freaking out about the germs? Right. Like, okay, yeah. But then she's like such a sweetie, like, love my mom, shout out. And she still does this, where she like researched it, essentially. Yeah. So she listened to a bunch of, there's this podcast, OCD Stories, that she listens to. And there's this interview with John Green and Terry Gross, where John Green is talking about his OCD, and Terry Gross like pushes him and is like, what is the obsession though? Like, what is it? Like, and he was like, I can't talk about it. It's like, I've done a lot of work so that it's manageable. If I talk about it, I like really might sort of relapse. Not relapse is the wrong word, but get caught up again. And it was like, it sticks with me. I didn't even listen to this, but my mom was telling me that Terry Gross kept pushing, and eventually he was like, no, for real. Like, yeah, it's crazy because they re-released it and they kept it in. Wow. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, I sort of am just like, that was such a misread. Anyways. Right. But so my mom read the book after listening to that interview, and I think she was like, I think it was helpful for her, but she was also like, maybe don't read it. But then I watched the movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I also watched it on a plane. So I was like, oh God, it's so dangerous to watch anything. Why is that? It's like not even, it's like, I mean, speaking of feeling more. Oh God, yeah. I don't know what the fuck. Yeah, I mean, there is, I think someone figure that out. Someone will let us know in the comments, but like something about the pressure or something, it just primes you more. Yeah. But it's so, oh yeah. It's like, even movies that wouldn't
normally make you cry
Yeah.
will make you cry on a plane. So if you're like
Yeah.
watching something that you know is going to be emotional,
Yeah.
like a John Green
Ooh,
story,
man.
like, oh boy, do you have the middle seat? Do you have the aisle seat?
Oh, I hope I had the aisle. I'm always sitting. I'm doing Southwest aisle.
Okay, I'm team aisle as well.
Yeah.
I don't mind if someone asks me to stand up.
Yeah.
But I hate having to ask someone. I'm so just like I'm like I'll give myself a UTI. Just like before,
I'd rather
like,
have
just
UTI
like,
than
I'd rather
ask.
have that than like ask a stranger to than like possibly inconvenience a stranger.
And it's so funny because like you on the other side is like I definitely don't care.
Oh yeah, I don't give a shit. Be like, okay, yeah. If I'm asleep, they'll like maybe, but I really don't sleep on planes like I used to either.
Yeah.
So
also, I think I would just assume that it was like a super emergency. But also, I don't know if that's true. Like, if I were to ask somebody to move while sleeping, it would be like, I'm so sorry, but like, I really,
yeah. Like, we're in danger of
making it way worse.
Yes, let's say.
But anyway, so I watched it and I like was I was flying home for I don't even know what, and then I was telling like my parents, my sister about it at dinner, and I was like, to just like sort of like rave reviewing, and my mom was like, we were kind of like agreed to do like a little book club, like the four of us.
Okay.
Of course, like my little sister said she would, but we all kind of knew. Like it was like she's playing the game. You know what I mean? She's being nice. I mean, like sure, I'll do it too. And it's like May's not gonna read it. Okay. And then my mom did read it again, and then my dad I think started it and didn't finish it. So it was a book club in a way, and that way was me and my mom read it.
Yeah. Okay.
But it just like really, I think it does a really extraordinary job in so many different facets of explaining OCD and what OCD feels like. And I mean, part of the struggle that Ava has is like the OCD, like C. diff is a parasite, and the OCD thoughts are like, she kind of gets freaked out about like, are they mine or are they, is it, who am I? Like what, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I'm like, I understand that my OCD thoughts are crazy in the mental illness sense of the word.
Right.
You know, like they're like, I'm like, no, I know that like if I drink from this glass, that's totally fine. Probably like my sister isn't going to die. Sort of. I sort of know that. But I also feel like she is. So I'm like, who's in control? And so that's a big like theme of the book.
Yeah.
And then also what really got me was at the end, it's kind of like a little bit even messed up. I sort of thought it was so profoundly sad in a way that I didn't think needed to be that sad. But essentially, so like she goes through this relationship and like, it's, you know, like it's like this hard thing. Like she wants to kiss him, but like she's so afraid. Like she kisses him and then freaks out. Because she's like there, and she like puts hand sanitizer, like gurgles hand sanitizer. I think she might even drink it. Like,
oh god,
yeah. So she's like, it's like this really like challenging thing of like having OCD and being in this relationship, and the guy is like so sweet, and then she like I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of subplots, but the end, she essentially the I don't even need to spoil it because I don't think it matters enough to tell what the ending is. Okay. But essentially I'll say they go their separate ways.
Okay.
But at the end, it has this like, so I was driving to my grandparents, like they're a few hours away, and I was listening to this audiobook, and I know that I cried for like 45 minutes because it was like the time that like, you know what I mean? Or maybe it was 20. It was a long time though. And I like had to get my shit together by the time. I was like,
dangerous while driving.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I don't think it was, I could see and stuff. It was just sort of streaming.
That's good.
No, I wasn't like, no, but like, so he sort of speed rounds, like, he's like, Ava, in this moment, Ava doesn't know that like, you know, it will get better and then she'll get married and then she'll have kids and then it'll get a lot worse and she'll have to be away from her kids for a little bit and then it gets better. Like I was sort of like, oh my gosh, but and obviously I can't surmise, like John Green is brilliant, but like this idea, he just talks about the importance of Davis's role and how even though they don't end up together, like how critical, just how grateful she is to have a reference point of like this person who like really cares about her
Hmm.
and like is kind of steadfast and like is kind and sees her OCD and sees her outside of the OCD. And so it made me think of, I had such a nice college boyfriend senior year. And it was like, so similarly, I just am like so grateful that when all those symptoms were developing, he was like, yeah, similarly, just like steadfast and like, it's okay. And like saw me. So I think that was really sweet. And then the other thing is that they talk about is like, Ava describes the OCD as like spiraling down, like twisting down tighter and tighter and tighter. And the way Davis sort of deals with his grief is he's obsessed with the stars because in his mind, like he's like, that star is so far away that it essentially lives in the past.
Right.
Like on that star, my mom is still alive.
Yeah.
Kind of. And so this idea of like twisting in tighter, 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 but also the other side of that is twisting out further and further and further.
Oh, wow.
And I just think that's so beautiful and kind of ties into what we've been talking about this whole time of like, you can't have life without death. You can't have pain without joy. Like you can't have, it spirals in, and maybe this is my like projection of like John Green. I'm like, I see that metaphor sort of imprinted on him where like he clearly can spiral down, but then he's also this like extraordinarily brilliant writer who like can relate to and like touch, see so many people. And I think like that just sort of makes me feel better about the spiraling tighter, which also exists. But on the other side, it also spirals bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah,
I mean, it sounds, I certainly was never diagnosed with it, but like those kind of thought loops were certainly like, I had a phase where I would get stuck in those sort of things too. And so like, as I'm hearing you say this, I'm like, oh, interesting. Oh, interesting. One wonders. But
OCD gang, come join us. It is hard.
But yeah, so what kind of has been, and if you don't want to talk about it, you certainly don't have to, but like what has been kind of your journey with with it, like getting some sort of control?
So the one big step was medicine. So Lexapro, shout out girls, Lexapro girls. That helped a lot because it was so physical. Like I don't think I realized when I first took medicine, I didn't realize how I was like, why can't I argue with my head? But when I took medicine, I realized that like it was like my whole body kind of. And so just like taking that down. So that helped. And then the other thing that honestly has been really helping is like feeling the fear because it's so fear-based. Like I'm just scared of things that have happened, scary things that have happened before happening again. So like getting a call that it's like, like about my dad's health and like not knowing, that I'm so scared of a call that changes everything.
Yeah.
And so sort of sitting in the feelings and being like, I am really scared. Like, there's another, my good friend of mine has, also intense OCD. And so she sent me this web page about how to talk to OCD, and instead of doing like ping pong, like back and forth, it's like acknowledge it and be like, yeah, I agree. I'm like really scared about that. Like I understand. And so that's helped. And then the other thing, unfortunately, is exposure therapy is what, and it sucks ass. It's so bad because it's like you kind of just have to be like, I'm gonna die, and just sit with it for 20 minutes, and it's like it sucks, but it does help. So those are kind of I think the three things, and we'll see, more will be revealed. Yeah. Maybe I'll figure it out.
It's a journey. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that like John Green was saying, like you get more tools and then, stuff happens and then you get other tools. So yeah, but I think so is, it's just life is, there's good stuff, there's bad stuff. Yeah. It's hard and then it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that in terms of talking about feeling things versus not feeling things, like you can't turn down the volume on the bad stuff without turning down the volume on the good stuff.
Exactly.
And so like, if you you numb yourself
Mhm.
and you stop feeling the bad stuff, you'll also stop feeling the good stuff.
Yeah.
And I had a long period of like in my 20s where I just kind of had anhedonia, where it was just like I just didn't really feel much.
What is anhedonia? Is that just
it's the lack? It's like basically like a lack of pleasure where you just like you don't. Nothing hits.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah,
and you don't feel that bad, but you don't get excited about things,
right?
You don't feel. And I think I will sometimes, I'll slip into that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's a defense mechanism,
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
And sometimes you need it. And then there's some other times where you have the tools and you can handle it better. Yeah. But this is great.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you came and shared those books and those stories. And now it's time
my present
for your present. So this is an author.
Should I want you to tell me about it.
No, you go for it. I'm gonna vamp because you're gonna have to set the microphone down.
Okay.
But this is an author that I've given away on this show before. One of my favorites. And it is Civil War Land in Bad Decline.
Is it because I'm obsessed with the Civil War?
Yes.
I'm not obsessed with it.
I forgot. No, I'll be honest. I forgot that this was part of the lore. That you are a huge Civil War
head. It's mostly that it was on my bingo card last year to learn about the Civil War. And I watched one documentary.
Okay.
So I think this is going to be...
So this is a collection of short stories by George Saunders. He's one of my favorite authors. And the titular story, Civil War Land in Bad Decline, is about people who work at a Civil War reenactment park.
Fun.
And so that's like one of his recurring motifs is like looking at the people who work at these kind of...
Actually, I said fun, but now that I'm... Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. No,
I liked the costumes. The first thing that came to mind was costumes, and I liked that part.
So, but there's another story. The reason that... I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to get, is listening to that Perfect Person episode. You and Will Whitwer, friend of the show, shout out,
friend of the show,
talked about the water park in Denver. Oh, yeah. And there's a story in this collection. It's called The Wavemaker Falters. And it's about a guy who works at like at a water park.
Oh my gosh.
And I think Saunders might be from Colorado.
Okay.
I think he's, or at least lived there for some time.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a collection of short stories. And the best thing about, a short story book is it fits in well with your philosophy. You can read one or two.
There we go.
Don't have to read them all. But,
what do you like about George Saunders?
I love that. I just love the way that he sees the world. Like he has so much empathy, and that is one of the things that shines through in his work so much, is that he will write about very flawed characters that you would think it would be hard to empathize with, and he finds a way to empathize with them. I also like his commentary on like capitalism and just the American experience, specifically of just like we live in this kind of ahistorical place where we have a really at best strange relationship with our own history, because it's a country built on stolen land that was stolen through genocide, but like we've just completely scrubbed that from the popular imagination. And so and then you have things like, he has this obsession with theme park, like historical theme parks. Yeah. Like he's visited it many times in his career. This is his first short story collection. And how just bizarre those places are. Yeah. And he dives into it in a very fun way. And he also like brings in an element of spirituality as well. A lot of his stories will feature someone dying and going into the afterlife.
Oh, wow.
And so his meditations on death are really fascinating.
Interesting. So, okay, well, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to read, especially the Civil War and the water park one.
Yes, yeah, those are the two. I would start with one of those two.
Yeah.
So
great.
But yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And what do you got to plug?
Oh my gosh. Definitely follow me on It's Rainie Toll on Instagram. There's going to be more updates there. And I guess you can follow me on Rainie Toll on TikTok. But mainly look out for my podcast coming soon.
Coming soon. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rainie. And thank you to everyone for watching and listening. And as always, keep reading.